She signed a contract to carry his child. Nothing more. Grace Nwosu never expected the cold billionaire to look at her like she mattered. Madrid Henson never expected the woman carrying his legacy to heal the wounds he'd buried 3 years ago. But when her life hangs in the balance, he's forced to choose between the child he desperately wanted and the woman he never saw coming. This is a story about two broken souls, an impossible love, and the heart that beats between duty and desire. Will Grace survive? Will Madrid finally let go of his past? And what happens when the contract ends but the feelings don't? Stay until the very end to find out. If you love emotional love stories that hit deep, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment telling us what you think will happen, and subscribe so you never miss our next story. The nausea hit Grace like a wave crashing against shore rocks. She gripped the edge of the marble bathroom sink, breathing through her nose the way Dr. Liu had taught her, and waited for the world to stop spinning. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the guest suite, Los Angeles sprawled beneath her like a glittering promise she'd never quite believed in. For months pregnant, and her body was no longer her own. Miss Nwosu. The voice came from beyond the door, formal and concerned. Mr. Henson asked me to check on you. Grace wiped her mouth and straightened, catching her reflection in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes, skin that had lost some of its glow, but her chin was still lifted. Still strong. I'm fine, Nora. Just morning sickness. Though it's 3 in the afternoon, so I suppose it's just sickness now. She heard a soft chuckle. May I come in? Of course. Nora Blake entered with the efficiency of someone who'd spent 2 decades managing chaos. She was dressed in her usual crisp blazer, but her expression held genuine warmth. Mr. Henson is in a board meeting, but he left strict instructions that if you needed anything at all, I was to handle it immediately. Grace smiled despite herself. In the 3 weeks since she'd moved into Madrid's Malibu mansion, she'd learned that the man operated entirely through intermediaries. Nora delivered messages. The chef, Marcus, prepared meals based on notes Madrid left. The driver, James, appeared whenever she needed to go anywhere. Madrid himself was a ghost, present in every consideration but absent in person. I don't need anything, Grace said, moving past Nora into the bedroom. Except maybe to stop throwing up. The first trimester is almost over. Dr. Liu says it should ease soon. Nora paused. Mr. Henson wanted me to ask if you'd prefer different accommodations. He's concerned this room might be too isolated. Grace looked around the suite that was larger than her entire apartment in Koreatown. This is fine. Better than fine. It's just... She trailed off, unsure how to explain the loneliness of luxury. Lonely, Nora finished for her. I know. He is too, even if he'd never admit it. Before Grace could respond, her phone buzzed. A video call from Lagos. Her brother's face filled the screen, and she answered immediately. Chica! How are you feeling? Her 17-year-old brother grinned, but she could see the fatigue around his eyes. Sister Grace, you should see the hospital room. It's like something from American movies. The surgery is scheduled for next week. Relief flooded through her. The money transferred. Every naira. Grace, I don't know how to thank you. You get better. That's how you thank me. She blinked back tears. I love you, baby brother. I love you too. And Grace? Whatever you're doing there, whatever sacrifice you're making, I promise I'll make it worth it. I'll make you proud. After the call ended, Grace sat on the edge of the bed, hand pressed to her still flat stomach. For months, and already this child had saved her brother's life. The contract stated that Madrid Henson wanted an heir, nothing more. She would carry the baby, deliver it, and walk away with enough money to change everything for her family. Simple. Clean. Transactional. So why did this mansion feel less like a sanctuary and more like a beautiful cage? That evening, Grace ventured downstairs for the first time since moving in. The house was a masterpiece of modern architecture, all clean lines and windows that erased the boundary between inside and out. She found the kitchen and helped herself to some of the okra soup Marcus had prepared, surprised that a French chef could nail Nigerian flavors so perfectly. He researched recipes for 2 weeks. Grace spun around, nearly dropping her bowl. Madrid Henson stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching her with those unsettling grey eyes. He was tall, lean, with the kind of severe beauty that came from too much isolation. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened, but he still radiated control. "Mr. Henson. I didn't hear you come in." "Madrid," he corrected, his voice low and measured. "We're living in the same house. Formality seems excessive. Living is a strong word. I'm staying here temporarily. There's a difference." Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. "How are you feeling? Nora said you were ill this afternoon." "I'm pregnant. It comes with the territory." Grace set down her bowl, suddenly self-conscious. "The soup is perfect. Tell Marcus I said thank you. Tell him yourself. You're not a prisoner here, Grace." "Aren't I?" The words escaped before she could stop them. "I can't work. Can't go anywhere without security. Can't even have visitors without clearance." The contract was very specific. Madrid stepped further into the kitchen, and Grace noticed the weariness in his movements. "The contract is designed to protect you. And the child. To protect your privacy, you mean?" "That too." He poured himself a glass of water, his movements precise. "I built an empire by being careful, Miss Nwosu. By controlling variables. This situation is already more unpredictable than anything I've ever done. I'm not a variable. I'm a person." "I know." He met her eyes, and for a moment, the mask slipped. "That's the problem." Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone, disappearing back into whatever wing of the house he occupied. Grace stood alone in the kitchen, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones. The weeks that followed established a strange rhythm. Madrid remained largely absent, but his presence was everywhere. Grace would wake to find pregnancy books on her nightstand, bookmarked at chapters about nutrition and fetal development. Her room was suddenly stocked with shea butter from Nigeria, the expensive kind her mother used to buy before things got hard. The garden was redesigned to include a walking path with benches every 20 feet, perfect for a pregnant woman who needed gentle exercise. She never saw him do any of these things. But she knew. Dr. Liu's appointments became the only time they were reliably in the same room. Madrid would sit stiffly in the corner while the doctor examined Grace, his face unreadable as they listened to the heartbeat, reviewed the ultrasounds, discussed milestones. He never asked questions, but Grace noticed how his hands would clench when Dr. Liu mentioned risks or complications. "Everything looks excellent," Dr. Liu announced during the 5-month checkup. "The baby is developing perfectly. Heart rate is strong. Grace, you're doing an amazing job." "Thank you." Grace wiped the gel from her stomach, acutely aware of Madrid's gaze. "I do want to monitor your blood pressure," Dr. Liu continued. "It's slightly elevated. Nothing concerning yet, but we'll keep an eye on it." Madrid stood abruptly. "What does elevated mean? What are the risks?" "It's common in pregnancy," Dr. Liu assured him. "But we'll be cautious. Grace, I want you to reduce stress, avoid excessive salt, and rest more. If it continues to rise, we'll discuss medication." After Dr. Liu left, Madrid turned to Grace. "You'll stop the walks. Too much exertion. The walks are doctor-recommended exercise. Your blood pressure is slightly elevated, not critical." "I'm not made of glass, Madrid." "No, you're not." His jaw tightened. "You're carrying something irreplaceable." "The baby, you mean?" He stared at her for a long moment. "Yes. The baby." But the way he said it made Grace wonder if he was lying. That night, a thunderstorm rolled in from the Pacific. Grace had always loved storms in Lagos, the way they washed the heat from the air and made the world feel new. But this storm was different, violent and wild, shaking the windows with each crack of thunder. She stood at the glass, watching lightning illuminate the ocean, when a knock came at her door. Madrid stood in the hallway, still dressed in his work clothes despite the late hour. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." "The storm." "I love storms. Most people are afraid of them." "I'm not most people." Grace stepped back, an invitation. "Come in. Unless that violates some clause in the contract." A ghost of a smile touched his lips as he entered. He looked around her room, taking in the Nigerian fabric she'd draped over the headboard, the photos of her family on the nightstand, the small touches that made the space hers. "You've made it home," he observed. "Is that okay? I can remove everything." "No. It's good. It should feel like home." He moved to the window, standing beside her. "You're a long way from Lagos." "Geographically or metaphorically?" "Both." Grace watched his reflection in the glass. "Why did you really come here tonight, Madrid?" The storm raged outside, filling the silence between them. Finally, he spoke. 3 years ago, I lost my wife. Catherine. She was pregnant, 6 months along. We were driving home from a charity gala, and a drunk driver crossed the median. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands were trembling. She died on impact. The baby, a girl, lived for 3 hours. I held her until she stopped breathing. Grace's hand flew to her stomach involuntarily. "Madrid, I'm so sorry. I wanted a child because I lost one. Because I failed to protect them. This is my chance to get it right." "You didn't fail. It was an accident. I was driving. And you couldn't have prevented it." He turned to face her, and the anguish in his eyes stole her breath. "I dream about it every night." The impact. Her scream. The silence after. "I haven't forgiven myself. I don't think I ever will." Grace did something then that probably violated every boundary in their contract. She took his hand. "You're not that man anymore. You're not reckless or careless. You're so careful it's suffocating. This baby, this child you want so desperately, will never doubt that you'll protect them. But Madrid, you can't control everything. You can't live in fear of loss," says the woman who left her entire life behind to save her brother. "That's different." "Is it? You're afraid too. Afraid of staying in Nigeria and watching him die. Afraid of getting too comfortable here. Afraid of," he stopped himself. "Afraid of what?" Thunder cracked so loud they both flinched. Madrid's hand tightened on hers. "Afraid of this. Whatever this is." The air between them felt charged, electric in a way that had nothing to do with the storm. Grace knew she should step back, put distance between them, remind them both that this was temporary. But instead, she moved closer. "Madrid. I should go." But he didn't move. "We have boundaries for a reason." "Yes. Very logical reasons." Her voice was barely a whisper. "So why are you still here?" "Because when I'm near you, I forget to be afraid. And that terrifies me more than anything." He left then, quickly, as if staying another moment would undo him completely. Grace stood at the window long after he'd gone, her hand still warm from his touch, her heart pounding a rhythm that matched the thunder. The next morning, everything changed. Grace woke to find a breakfast tray outside her door with a handwritten note. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable last night. It won't happen again. M.H." She crumpled the note, frustrated by his retreat into formality. But when she ventured downstairs, she found Madrid waiting in the kitchen. "I thought you had work," she said carefully. "I do. But I realized something last night." He poured her a cup of ginger tea, the kind that helped with her nausea. I've been treating you like a transaction when you're a person living in my home, carrying my child, away from everything familiar. That's not fair to you. The contract. The contract can be amended. Grace, I'd like to propose something. What if we tried to be friends? Friends? Is that so impossible? Grace studied him, this complicated man who built walls around himself but left her thoughtful gifts. Friends talk to each other. Spend time together. Trust each other. I can do that. Can you? Because Madrid, you're very good at providing things but terrible at providing yourself. He was quiet for a moment. You're right. I've forgotten how to be around people. How to be anything except the man who runs Henson Robotics. But I want to try. For the baby's sake. Just the baby's sake. His eyes met hers, and she saw something raw and real flickering there. At first, yes. Now? I'm not sure anymore. That was how it started. Small at first. Madrid began eating breakfast with her before work, asking about her family, her childhood in Lagos, her dreams beyond nursing. Grace learned about his own childhood, about a demanding father who'd built an empire and expected perfection, about a mother who died young and left him alone with expectations too heavy for a boy to carry. They began walking the garden path together in the evenings, Madrid matching his pace to her slower, pregnant waddle. He told her about his wife, about the love they'd shared and the future they'd planned. Grace shared her own heartbreaks, the boyfriend in Lagos who'd left when money got tight, the dreams of nursing school she deferred to support her family. You're brilliant, Madrid said one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky pink and gold. You could do anything, be anything. I'm doing what I need to do. That's not the same as doing what you want to do. Maybe not. But it's enough. She looked at him. What about you? Is this enough? The empire, the success, the isolation. It was. Before. Before what? Before you moved in and started leaving your warmth everywhere. Before I remembered what it felt like to have someone to come home to. Grace's breath caught. They'd been dancing around this for weeks now, this connection that grew stronger every day despite every logical reason it shouldn't. Madrid, this is temporary. You know that. I know what the contract says. I'm less certain about what I feel. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Chica's doctor, calling from Lagos. Grace answered with trembling hands, and Madrid moved closer, instinctively protective. The surgery had gone perfectly. Chica was recovering well. He'd live. Grace collapsed onto the nearest bench, sobbing with relief. Madrid sat beside her, pulling her into his arms without hesitation. She buried her face in his chest, and he held her as if she were something precious, something worth protecting. He's going to be okay, she whispered against his shirt. He's going to live. Of course he is. He has you fighting for him. Madrid's hand smoothed over her hair. You saved him, Grace. You're extraordinary. She pulled back to look at him, and the expression on his face made her heart stutter. He was looking at her the way people looked at miracles, at answered prayers, at things they couldn't quite believe were real. Madrid. I know. I know this is complicated. I know we have boundaries. But Grace, I need you to know that you're not just someone carrying my child. He stopped, as if the words were too dangerous to speak. I'm what? You're bringing me back to life. And I don't know what to do with that. They sat in the garden as twilight deepened, neither willing to break the moment. Grace knew this was dangerous territory. She was his employee, technically, bound by contract and circumstance. But her heart didn't care about contracts. Her heart only knew that this broken man was slowly becoming whole again, and she was falling for him with every piece he revealed. The next few weeks felt like living in a dream. Madrid worked from home more often, joining her for meals, watching movies with her in the evening, reading pregnancy books alongside her. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, their conversations flowing as naturally as breathing. He began touching her more, small gestures that felt monumental. A hand on her lower back as they walked. Fingers brushing hers when he handed her tea. His palm pressing against her belly when the baby kicked for the first time. "Did you feel that?" Grace gasped, grabbing his hand and holding it against her stomach. Madrid's face transformed. Wonder, pure and unguarded, lighting his features like sunrise. "That's our baby." "Your baby," she corrected gently. "Our baby," he repeated, more firmly. "Grace, I know what the contract says, but this child wouldn't exist without you. You're not just carrying them. You're protecting them, nourishing them, loving them already. That makes you their mother in every way that matters." Tears streamed down Grace's face. "Don't say things like that. Don't make this harder than it already is." "Why is it hard?" "Because in 4 months, I'm supposed to leave. I'm supposed to hand you this baby and walk away like none of this mattered. Like you don't matter." Madrid cupped her face in his hands. "Who says you have to leave?" "The contract. I'll tear up the contract." "Grace, I don't care about the contract anymore. I care about you. You're confused. You're grieving and lonely and I'm here and available. But Madrid, this isn't real. It can't be real." "Why not?" "Because you're a billionaire and I'm a Nigerian nurse who shares a 1-bedroom apartment in Koreatown. Because this whole thing started as a business arrangement. Because the power dynamic is all wrong. Because—" He kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate, fierce, 3 months of tension and longing finally breaking free. Grace kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was wrong, impossible, dangerous. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Madrid rested his forehead against hers. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm imagining it, and I'll never touch you again." "I can't tell you that," Grace whispered. "Because I feel it too. But Madrid, feeling something doesn't make it right. You're my employer. I'm pregnant with your child. This is the only thing that's made sense in 3 years." His thumb brushed across her lips. "Grace, I'm not confused. I'm not mistaking gratitude for love. I know exactly what I feel, and it terrifies me because I swore I'd never feel it again. But you walked into my life and changed everything. What if this is just because I'm here? What if? Then stay. After the baby is born, stay. Be part of this child's life. Be part of my life." Grace wanted to say yes. Every cell in her body screamed to say yes. But reality was a cold, hard thing. And what happens when the cameras find out? When your board learns you're involved with your surrogate? When the tabloids make me out to be some gold digger who seduced you? I'll handle it. You can't control everything, Madrid. You said that yourself. I can control this. Grace, please. Give us a chance. She looked at this man who'd somehow become her whole world in just a few months. This man who'd been broken and was slowly healing, who looked at her like she was magic, who touched her belly with reverence and her face with desire. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, let's try." His smile was like watching winter transform into spring. They tried. They tried so hard. Madrid arranged for private dinners on the terrace, cooked by Marcus but served by only them. They talked about the future, about what kind of parents they wanted to be, about how they'd navigate the complications. Grace let herself imagine staying, building a life here, raising this child together. But the universe had other plans. It started with photographs. A long-range lens catching Madrid helping Grace into a car, his hand protective on her visible baby bump. The caption, "Tech Billionaire's Secret Baby Mama." Then came the investigation. Tabloids digging into Grace's background, spinning stories about how she'd trapped him, how she was after his fortune. The Henson Robotics board called emergency meetings. Shareholders expressed concern. Madrid's reputation, carefully cultivated over decades, began to crack. "We need to release a statement," Nora urged during a tense meeting at the House. "Control the narrative before it controls us." "What kind of statement?" Madrid demanded. "The truth. That Ms. Nwosu is your surrogate, contracted and compensated, and that the relationship is purely professional." Grace felt something inside her shatter. Of course. That was the logical move, the smart move. Deny everything, protect his empire, reduce her to a transaction. "Absolutely not," Madrid said. "I'm not lying about Grace." "Then what do you propose?" Nora's voice was sharp with frustration. "The board is threatening to remove you as CEO. Your stock prices are falling. You need to do damage control. Or I could tell the truth. That yes, Grace was my surrogate. And yes, I fell in love with her." The room went silent. Grace stared at him, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "Madrid, you can't." "Why not?" "It's the truth." He turned to her, ignoring everyone else in the room. "I love you, Grace. I think I've loved you since that first night in the storm when you held my hand and told me I wasn't failing. You made me believe I could be human again, that I could feel something besides grief. And yes, the circumstances are unconventional. Yes, it's complicated. But I don't care. I love you." Tears streamed down Grace's face. "I love you too. But Madrid, your company, can survive without me if necessary. But I can't survive without you." Nora cleared her throat. "This is very touching, but we need a practical solution. Mr. Henson, if you announce this relationship, the backlash will be severe. The board will." She was interrupted by Grace's sharp gasp. Pain, sudden and fierce, radiating through her abdomen. She doubled over, clutching her stomach. "Grace." Madrid was at her side instantly, supporting her weight. "What's wrong?" "Something's not right." Her vision swam. "Madrid, something's wrong with the baby." The next hours were a blur of ambulances and emergency rooms and doctors speaking in urgent tones. "Preeclampsia," they said. "Severe." Grace's blood pressure had spiked dangerously high, and the baby was in distress. She was only 7 months along, but if they didn't act soon, they'd lose them both. Grace lay in the hospital bed, hooked to monitors, watching numbers that meant the difference between life and death. Madrid refused to leave her side, holding her hand so tightly she thought her bones might break. "You need to save the baby," Grace said, her voice weak but firm. "If it comes down to a choice." "No." Madrid's face was fierce, terrified. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. Madrid, this is what you wanted. An heir. A child. That's the whole reason. I don't care about any of that anymore." His voice cracked. "Grace, I can have another child. I can't have another you. Do you understand? You are irreplaceable. You are everything." Dr. Liu entered, his expression grave. "We need to make a decision. Grace's condition is deteriorating. If we wait much longer, we'll lose her. The baby has a decent chance if we deliver now by emergency C-section, but at 7 months, there are significant risks." "What are the risks to Grace if we wait?" Madrid demanded. "Seizures. Stroke. Organ failure. Death." Madrid looked at Grace, his eyes swimming with tears. "Then we deliver now. Save Grace." "The baby," Grace protested. "We'll be fine. Our baby will be fine because they have to be. But Grace, I can't lose you. I won't." He pressed his lips to her forehead. "Please. Please let them save you." Grace saw the terror in his eyes, the same terror he must have felt 3 years ago when he'd lost everything. She couldn't do that to him again. She couldn't leave him alone in the dark. "Okay," she whispered. Okay. The surgery was a nightmare. Grace, drugged and fading, heard voices as if from underwater. Madrid's voice, begging her to stay with him. Dr. Liu, calling out medical terms she didn't understand. Alarms blaring, urgent footsteps, the sharp smell of antiseptic and fear. Then nothing. Grace woke to silence. White walls. Machines beeping. Sunlight streaming through hospital windows. And Madrid, asleep in the chair beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers. Madrid. Her voice was barely a croak. He jerked awake, and when he saw her eyes open, something in him broke. He pressed his face against her hand, his shoulders shaking with sobs. You're okay. Thank God, you're okay. The baby. A girl. For pounds, 3 ounces. She's in the NICU, but the doctors say she's a fighter. She's breathing on her own, and her vitals are strong. He looked up at her, his face wet with tears. Grace, you gave me a miracle. Can I see her? Soon. They want you to rest first. You lost a lot of blood. It was... He couldn't finish. I thought I'd lost you. I sat there watching them work on you, and all I could think was that I'd done this. I'd asked you to carry my child, and it nearly killed you. Grace squeezed his hand. Hey! Look at me. This wasn't your fault. Complications happen. But we're both okay. We're both here. When you were in surgery, I made a promise. Madrid's voice was fierce. I promised that if you survived, I would never let you doubt how much you mean to me. I would never hide how I feel or pretend this is anything less than love. Madrid. No, listen. The board can fire me. The tabloids can write whatever they want. I don't care. Grace, you are the bravest, strongest, most extraordinary person I've ever known. You left your home to save your brother. You agreed to carry a stranger's child. You nearly died bringing our daughter into the world. And somehow, despite everything, you made me believe in second chances. He brought her hand to his lips. I love you. Completely. Impossibly. Forever. Grace felt tears sliding down her face. I love you too. Even though this is crazy and complicated and might ruin both our lives. Then let's be crazy together. 3 days later, Grace was finally strong enough to be wheeled to the NICU. Madrid pushed her wheelchair himself, refusing to let anyone else do it. When they reached their daughter's incubator, Grace broke down completely. She was tiny, perfect, her dark hair already thick on her head. Her skin was a beautiful mix of Grace's brown and Madrid's pale tone, creating something entirely unique. She was wrapped in blankets, her little chest rising and falling steadily. She's perfect, Grace breathed. She looks like you, Madrid said softly. She has your strength. I can already see it. What should we name her? Madrid looked surprised. We? Grace, you don't have to. Stop. Stop treating me like I'm temporary. I'm not leaving. Not you, not her. We're a family now, for better or worse. His smile could have powered the sun. Then let's name her together. They decided on Catherine Grace Henson. Catherine for the wife Madrid had lost, Grace for the woman who'd saved him. It felt right, this bridge between past and present, grief and joy. The media storm, when it came, was as bad as they'd feared. Tabloids screamed about scandal, about impropriety, about billionaires and surrogates and ethical violations. The Henson Robotics Board called for Madrid's resignation. Shareholders filed complaints. Madrid handled it all with a calm that surprised everyone. He held a press conference, Grace at his side, and told the truth. All of it. The surrogacy agreement. His grief. Their unexpected love. The near-death experience that had made him realize what truly mattered. I asked Grace Nwosu to carry my child because I was drowning in loss and desperate for meaning, he said, looking directly into the cameras. What I didn't expect was that she would carry my heart too. Yes, our relationship began unconventionally. Yes, it's complicated. But I will not apologize for falling in love with the most remarkable woman I've ever met. And I will not hide her or pretend she's anything less than the center of my world. The public response was mixed. Some people called it romantic. Others called it exploitative. The board remained hostile. But Madrid didn't waver. When they threatened to remove him, he resigned instead, choosing Grace and Catherine over the empire he'd built. "Are you sure?" Grace asked him that night, Catherine sleeping between them in her bassinet. "Madrid, you worked so hard for that company." "I worked hard because I had nothing else. Now I have everything." He reached across the baby to take Grace's hand. "I have you. I have our daughter. The rest is just noise." 6 months later, they stood together at a charity gala. Madrid had started a new company, smaller but more focused, and devoted a significant portion of its profits to supporting surrogates and their families. Grace was back in school, working toward her nursing degree with Madrid's full support. Catherine was with Nora for the evening, thriving and healthy, already showing signs of her mother's determination and her father's sharp intelligence. Grace wore a stunning emerald dress that Madrid had commissioned from a Nigerian designer, her natural hair styled in elaborate braids. She'd never felt more beautiful, more seen, more loved. Madrid took the microphone for his speech, and the room fell silent. 3 years ago, I lost my wife and unborn daughter in a tragic accident. I spent those 3 years believing I'd never feel joy again, that I'd never deserve it. Then a brave Nigerian woman agreed to help a stranger build a family, and she ended up building something even more precious. She built me a reason to live again." He turned to Grace, his eyes shining. "Grace, you were supposed to be a surrogate. Instead, you became my salvation. You carried my child, yes. But more than that, you carried my heart when I couldn't. You showed me that second chances are real, that love can bloom in the most unexpected places, and that families aren't always born, sometimes they're chosen." The room erupted in applause. Grace felt tears streaming down her face as Madrid stepped off the stage and pulled her into his arms. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "Thank you for not giving up on me. On us. Thank you for seeing me," she whispered back. "For making me believe I was worth more than just survival." They danced together as the orchestra played, two people who'd found each other in the darkest moments and chosen to step into the light together. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still challenges ahead, cultural differences to navigate, public scrutiny to endure, wounds that needed time to fully heal. But they had love. They had trust. They had a beautiful daughter sleeping peacefully at home. And they had each other. 1 year after Catherine's birth, Grace and Madrid stood in the park near their new home, smaller than the Malibu mansion but filled with warmth and laughter. Catherine took her first wobbly steps between them, her face lit with concentration and joy. When she reached Grace's arms, they both cheered. Madrid wrapped his arms around both of them, and Grace felt completely, perfectly at peace. She'd come to America to save her brother's life. She'd agreed to carry a stranger's child for money. But she'd found something worth more than any contract or payment. She'd found home. "What are you thinking?" Madrid asked, reading her expression the way he always could now. "That I signed up to carry your child, but I ended up carrying so much more. Hope. Healing. Love." She looked up at him. "And I'd do it all again, every difficult moment, to end up right here." "Me too." He kissed her forehead, then Catherine's. "You two are my whole world." They sat on a park bench as Catherine played in the grass nearby, and Grace rested her head on Madrid's shoulder. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, promising tomorrow, always tomorrow, stretching out before them like an answered prayer. She'd carried his heart, yes. But he'd carried hers right back. And together, they built something neither of them had believed possible, a second chance at everything. If you loved Grace and Madrid's story, don't forget to hit that like button and let us know in the comments what moment touched your heart the most. Was it their first kiss in the storm? The hospital scene? Or their happy ending? Subscribe so you never miss another emotional love story. Until next time, keep believing in second chances.